there's a lot of things that we're going to be talking about regarding lynchings and violence. So just FYI, if you don't want to see some things, turn away, close your eyes. But I know there's like debate on whether it is beneficial to show pictures, but I think that it's beneficial because A, it's a part of history, and B, I think if by seeing it, it makes you, say this was something horrible. Let's work together so that this doesn't happen again. So just as a preface for the lesson, just so you guys know. But before we get started, we're going to do some breathing. Let me present Pharmacy to breathe.
Mm.
And I went back through the chat. I realized I missed so much good conversation. I was so mad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. I was like, I just need to log in. I don't miss it. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Williams.
I was gonna say, I don't know. We'll talk about that and see, because I don't want them, always interrupting. I don't know what you want to come through and what you don't. So
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's chat.
Okay.
After class.
Okay.
Sorry, that was me joining. I just turned it off. Okay. All right. So we're going to breathe. We're going to take a deep breath in. And exhale. Deep breath in. And exhale. In. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. And exhale. And one more time. Deep breath in. And exhale. Okay. All right. So before we get started, I love Cam's breathing emojis. So before we get started, I wanted to know, what do you guys know about lynchings? And can you list some examples? Like, do you know specific examples or names of those who were victims of lynchings? And you can just write your comments in the chat box, or you can put hand emoji and share. Mm. Mm-hmm. That's right, because remember, lynchings doesn't have to be with a rope in a tree, right? So definitely Mike Brown. It's pretty much murdering people with a mob. Mm-hmm. Good job, Urukaya. Anybody want to share verbally?
Cam.
Yeah, wasn't Emmett Till?
Emmett Till.
Yes, absolutely. Good. Oh, Tiffany said she can't hear.
I don't know.
Is it still like that, Tiff?
It has.
Let me see. Maybe if you leave out and then come back in. Oh, that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say you. Why did it change it to though? Maybe if Tiff leaves out and then comes back in, that might be helpful. Okay, okay. Try to leave. Oh, you beat me to it.
Kinda.
Okay. Oh, something happened to Julie too.
Yeah.
What?
All right. Tiff is back.
Tiff is back. Yay. And Michelle is in the house. Okay. So we had some good examples. Cam, I think, has his hand up, so he's going to share. Tamir Rice, yes. Absolutely. Cam, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
I said Emmett Till.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that seems like a popular one. I think most people, especially if you've been to the African American History Museum, which how many of you have been there? Just put like some hands or thumbs up, or I have in the chat box. But if you've been to African American History Museum, then you should be familiar with the story of Emmett Till. There's like a whole exhibit based around his story. And that was particularly, Cam has, Simone has. Oh, hi, Simone. That was particularly one of the powerful moments for us when I took my kids to, my students, to the museum a couple years ago. So, yeah, if you guys have not been, you should definitely check it out. All right, thank you. So today, we're going to be talking about white supremacy terrorism. And this is something, unfortunately, that also continues to plague us into modern times. And I think it's important to name it for what it is, because a lot of times we talk in terms of like focusing in or zeroing in on a group or an individual or a person, and not realizing that it's bigger than that, right? So if we're talking about the KKK, we're not just talking about the KKK, we're literally talking about white supremacy. And if we're talking about violence, we're not just talking about violence, we're talking about terrorism. The methods that was used by the KKK was specifically to terrorize the Black community and supporters of the Black community. So we have to call it what it is, so that we, A, don't forget it, and B, put things into its proper context instead of just looking at things in such a narrow perspective. So it's really important that you guys know that. I gave you guys a little bit of background about the KKK. Once again, the Civil War ends in 1965. The KKK is established in 1966. One of the men that becomes a leader of the KKK is Nathan Bedford Forrest. I mentioned him yesterday. He was the general that was responsible for giving the order for the Fort Pillow massacre, where hundreds of Black soldiers were killed after they had surrendered. So as you can see, this picture is highlighting the KKK once they had adapted these like uniforms that we have all come to associate with them. But before then, a lot of times it wasn't so uniform. It literally was like a sack with eyes cut out, or like a sheet. So it really just depended on the individual person. It didn't become more uniform until later on. What I would like to do with us today is to show you guys pictures, have you process the pictures, and then have you give me your response to the pictures, whether it's a comment or a question. And again, the pictures are going to be graphic in nature. And so just wanted to continue to warn you guys about that before actually revealing the picture. So I am not going to tell you what you're seeing right now. I want you guys to just look at this picture. And as you're looking at the picture, take note of, you know, what you see. What do you see in the image? And feel free to like just jot down what you see if you're taking notes. If you want to put in the chat box, it really is absolutely. Oh no, I'm sorry you're eating, Michelle. So in this space right here, the only thing that we're doing is just like writing down what we see. So I don't want you to tell me like how you feel. I literally want you to just tell me like, what do you see? So like we're analyzing this image. What do you notice? And again, you can put it in the chat box, or if you want, you can write it down. And so there are close-up photos. So that is coming next. Just an FYI. So again, what are you noticing? What do you see? Yeah, there's a whole group of people on the bridge. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is ask you guys, what questions do you have after seeing these images? So if you guys could leave some questions in the chat box. I have a ton of questions, but I'll hold mine. And so just put them in the chat box. While they're on the bridge. Good, Orupaya. Why would they want to do that? Yeah. Oh, boy, so hard to like, you know, teach this. It's sobering for sure. Okay, I'll give it like one more minute in case somebody is typing up a question. Why are his pants down? Yeah, Miss Williams. Did they throw the bodies into the water afterwards? Okay. Or did it just hang there? Yeah. Okay. So they did not allow the bodies to just, they didn't just cut them down and let them go into the water. They were taken down eventually and buried, but they stayed up for almost the whole entire day, and it was like a warning. So if you do this, this might happen to you, or if you're just Black, this might happen to you. So watch yourself. So that's actually not a man. That is a boy. He's 14 years old. And we'll go, I'll put some more info up, but I'm not sure if the child was. I don't believe he was. Here's the backstory behind what happened. So May 2nd, 1911, Laura's husband had went and basically like probably stolen someone's cow and slaughtered it for food. They were hungry. The sheriff was led to his house. And when the sheriff got there, they said, "Did you kill this cow?" And he said, "Yes, my family was hungry." And so after they admitted it, the sheriff noticed that they had a loaded firearm. So the son was holding it apparently, though there's like some discrepancy. And the sheriff told them to give him the gun. At some point, Laura reaches for the gun from her son to get it from him. According to the husband, it was to get it from out to then give it to the sheriff. But the sheriff, I guess, felt threatened by it. And at some point, a confrontation happened between the sheriff and the wife. And the gun went off, and the sheriff was shot and killed. And so because the sheriff was shot and killed, they were, you know, well, the husband was taken into custody once he admitted to killing the cow. So he was kind of like, he felt like if I confess, then my wife and my son will be safe. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. He was in jail, and while he was in jail, they went and brought in Laura and her 14-year-old child. She also had a toddler as well, a baby that was still being breastfed. And from what I understand, the baby was with her when this like crowd. So they went to the house, brought her into jail. This huge mob then went to the courthouse, and they dragged Laura and the child out of the courthouse and then drove them to a wooded area on the black side of town. And unfortunately, they did rape Laura. And then after they raped her, they hung her and her son. And again, he was 14 years old, and it was over a cow that they killed because they were hungry. Sounds like now, in many ways, right? And no, nobody was punished. You know, what you guys have to understand during this time period is that people who committed these things, they were police officers, they were lawyers, they were business owners, they were in every echelon of society. So there was never going to be any recourse because, of course, everybody's going to say, oh, I didn't see anything, right? Even if there's like proof that they did, even if they're standing in a photo. Another disturbing thing about this is a lot of these photos were used to create like little postcards, and they would sell them. And so lynchings were very popular during this time period, and these postcards were also popular. They would like so popular that people would go home to home to sell these postcards like they're souvenirs. So yeah, absolutely. What happened to the baby? Nobody knows what happened to the baby. I've been researching this for a while. There are some stories that say that the baby was killed, possibly thrown into the river, which is like, geez, like I can't even fathom that. And there are some stories that say that the baby was rescued and brought to like taken in by the community. But we're just not sure. And yes, absolutely. When you have a lot of unarmed Black men that are killed, many of them without weapons, there is a parallel between this like sudden rush to judgment. But I just think in general also that our, police can be very militarized in a lot of ways. So there are just Black people that are killed, right? There are, non-Blacks who are shot and killed by police. But obviously the numbers are much higher if you are a person of color. And a lot of times people would say that this is connected to like this inherent bias that many people have. Maybe they don't even realize they're having it, but it comes out when they're put in stressful situations where they immediately fear for their lives and they act on that fear. And this is what leads to situations like Tamir Rice, where he was 12 years old. Someone called the cops because he was playing in a park with a BB gun. The cops come and literally they jump out of the car at the same time they're yelling, "Drop the weapon." They unload rounds into this child and shooting and killing him. So it's very shoot first, ask later. Yeah. I'm sorry again for the gruesomeness. I apologize in advance for the gruesomeness. This is another story that I struggled with whether to share these pictures, and I just thought ultimately that it was necessary that I do so. So again, I would ask for you guys to, what are you noticing in this photograph? Yes, that is a burned and mutilated body. And I'll explain who he is in a second. What else do you guys notice about this photograph? There's like something really disturbing that I noticed immediately when I saw this photo. Yeah, the people are smiling at the burnt body. There's children there as well. So lynchings tended to be a time, it was considered like a joyous event. A lot of people, you know, would go and take pictures. They're often smiling. They would take souvenirs. They would take souvenirs from the lynching. It kind of looks like it's a part of the tree. If children are there, then it was daily. It wasn't daily, but this particular incident happened in the middle of the day. And well, I'm not going to give me a second, and I'll give you guys more info. The lynchings were a common occurrence during this time period. It's known as like the lynching period, which is like from 1880 to like 1920. Yeah, it was a happy event. Sometimes people might even bring food. I know this is like crazy, but unfortunately, this is the reality. It was a joyous occasion, and you will find many photos like this with people smiling, standing next to a mutilated corpse. It's extremely disturbing. So this is another picture from the event. It shows you the crowd, and so I can tell you that it is estimated between 10,000 and 15,000 people attended this event. And it was, the mayor was there as well as the chief of police. And so I'll tell you more. And as you can see, that is his body. They had taken his body down. So this is what happened to Jesse Washington. To give you guys a little bit of background, before this lynching happened, a movie that you guys may or may not have heard of called Birth of a Nation was released. And it was a movie that supposedly was to chronicle the lives of like a northern family and a southern family post-Civil War. And the film was boycotted by the NAACP. It was boycotted by Black people because the way that they depicted Black people was horrible. First of all, they had white people playing Black people, and they did so by putting themselves in. So they would like paint their entire face with black paint. And they portrayed Black people as being overly sexualized, as being extremely violent and psychopathic. So that gives you some background on the film. And this film is also lauded as helping to usher in a resurgence of the KKK. So what happens is he was accused of murdering his boss, who was a white English woman who immigrated from Europe. And he had a trial. It was a very short trial. And what ends up happening is he is basically convicted at the trial. And so right after the verdict, a mob of white men rushed where he was, dragged him out of the courthouse. They began to beat him and stab him while he was, obviously alive, as they were dragging him through the town. And when they got into the center of the town, he was like semi-conscious. They castrated him. They chopped off his fingers and other body parts to keep as souvenirs. They built a fire. and they put him over the fire. And to ensure that he would suffer, the rope that he was attached to, they would lower him down into the fire and then bring him back up. Lower him down and bring him back up. Yes, he was Irma. And they kept doing it for about 2 hours until he looked like what he did in the picture. Yes, and a lot of these body parts are still being like passed down from generation to generation, believe it or not. They're still out there, which is even more disgusting. A lot of the acts that occurred during this time period happened all over the U.S. You know, we talked about what happened to Cato yesterday, and that was Philadelphia. Now we're talking about, you know, things that are happening in Texas and Alabama, Oklahoma, we're going to get to. So these are all like different areas of the US, and it's the same thing, which is this terrorism, this violence that is inflicted upon Black people and Black bodies. Here's another image that I just wanted you to look at as well. This is a close-up on the crowd, and I want you guys to tell me again, like, what do you notice about this picture? Yeah, you don't care. Absolutely. All ages, men, women. What about their clothing? Hitler looking dude. I know, right? They seem really happy. Yeah. And what about their clothing? Right? Like they don't have on pajamas, right? They're like well dressed. So it's like it's a to do, you know, in the town. Like, let's go watch as these two blanks get hanged, and then let's cut off, you know, some fingers and toes so we can take it home. They look like church clothing. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. It's really sobering when you think about it. And, you know, there are hundreds of stories like this, right? These are just some ones that I feel like you guys should know. You definitely should not go through African American history without knowing about some of these things, right? How many of you guys have ever heard of Black Wall Street? Yes, no, maybe so. Cameron said I haven't. Okay. Let's see. Anybody else? Anybody else heard of Black Wall Street? Miss Williams said yes. Okay. So this is also really important because a lot of times when we're talking about like Black people being able to you know, become financially stable, that's the word I'm looking for. It's not something that is talked about a lot, right? But in pockets all over this country, there was a growing Black middle class, and this is no more. Bless you.
Mm-hmm.
This is no more evident than in what is known as Black Wall Street. So I'm just gonna put a bunch of these up. So again, remember 1915, Birth of a Nation comes out. After World War I, there's also a resurgence of the KKK as well. This is kind of spurred by the fact that a lot of Black men fought in World War I, and a lot of them came back. And surprise, surprise, what do you think they wanted to fight for when they came back? Someone take a guess. What do you think if you're fighting for the U.S., you're a vet, and you come back, you're gonna fight for your freedom. Yeah, hey, Miss Emery. You're gonna fight for your freedom. You're gonna fight for your rights, right? And so they also, a lot of people felt like, oh, these Black men are getting too big for their britches, right? So that also causes a lot of tension when Black people come back. Also, a lot of Black people move into northern neighborhoods or move from the rural areas to the city. They're looking for jobs. Sometimes people feel like they're taking jobs away from white men. And so, especially when you're coming back from the war, there's like a lot of tension that comes about. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, there is a neighborhood. It's called Greenwood. It's also known as like the Black Wall Street. And Tulsa in particular, they have found oil, so it became like very affluent. Of course, you know, this is during the time of segregation. So there's the Black neighborhoods and the white neighborhoods, and they're not together. And what happens is a shoe shiner named Dick Rowland on May 30th, 1921, got into an elevator with a white woman. Her name was Sarah Page. This white woman screams seconds later, and then he like runs out of the elevator. Now, what people believe actually happened was like he might have bumped into her by accident, and then she screamed. But what happens is this rumor starts going around, and it starts becoming bigger and worse. Like he assaulted her, he raped her. None of those things actually happened, but that is what they started to tell people to get them riled up. So it starts going around like, this Black guy just, you know, did something to this white woman. We have got to do something about this. And so Dick ends up getting arrested. He's in jail. So a group of Black men with guns, some of them vets, many of them vets, are like, we're going to go to the courthouse because we know that every time something happens and a Black man is arrested and taken to the courthouse, and at some point he disappears and is hanging from a tree the next day. So we're not going to let you do that. So they came and they wanted to stand at the courthouse to help protect this young kid. He's a kid, the teenager. So once they do that, they come, the sheriff tells them, no, we don't need you. You guys can leave. At the same time, there is a huge white crowd of men with guns that are there. So those men leave the courthouse, they march to the National Guard Armory, they try to break in and get more weapons. They don't succeed. The group of 25 Black men that came early to try to protect this young man then turns into 75 Black men with guns, and they come back to the courthouse. So when they come back to the courthouse, that is when a skirmish happens. They start fighting, you know, shots ring out, and this is what kicks off the violence. And so the crowd swells to over 1,000 armed white men, and they all just decide to go to Greenwood and just literally start burning the town, ransacking it. It was probably one of the worst instances of violence. And on top of that, they used personal airplanes to drop kerosene bombs onto the city. And if you guys ever watched the show on HBO called The Watchmen, this show, if you guys watched the show on HBO called The Watchmen, this particular show is it includes like this story, and the video in the show actually doesn't even go far enough with what actually happened to these people. They literally destroyed them, businesses destroyed, an entire town. People became refugees just like that. And so this is an example of when you have an affluent Black area, you know, a lot of times it was only a matter of time before it gets destroyed. And a lot of people say during this time period that what happens is like when the white men came over to that side of town, they realized that a lot of the Black people were living better than them. So they were immediately jealous of that too. So they started burning houses, burning schools, burning churches, and people had to hide in whatever way they could in order to be able to escape. So that was Black Wall Street. And these are some pictures from this time period. And as you can see, they titled it Little Africa on Fire. These are some after the damage. What do you guys think they're doing right now? Yes, absolutely, Ms. Williams. They're not cleaning up. What else do you think they might be doing? Getting what's left, looking for the remainder of their stuff. Absolutely, absolutely. But can you imagine, you know, and they believe that so the official number that they give is like less than 100, but in reality, they believe that the number is much bigger. So you also have to remember that this didn't get a lot of media, like a lot of attention during that time period, and a lot of Black people were afraid to talk during this time period. So for them, we probably will never know like the true number of how many people were killed. But just imagine, like there's like kerosene bombs coming out of the sky. There are people riding through the town with guns. They're just shooting anybody. They're burning people in homes. So obviously we know that the numbers are going to be much higher than what they actually say. And right here, oh, I forgot to say, right here, there is a wonderful interview that was done by William Danforth Williams, and he survived the Tulsa race riots. So,
tell me about the riot, what you remember. They've been over here talking to you about that riot.
We're almost done.
Yes, Lord.
We're almost done this PowerPoint. So once we finish, I'll share it with everyone. But I think that you guys should all listen to this. It's really amazing that you have like a first-person account of what happened, and that he survived and was able to tell his story. It is 21 minutes long, so just FYI. But I do think you guys should have a listen. Okay, so let's see. So that was Greenwood, aka Tulsa, and now we are going to transition to another same, like very similar stories that happened. This is called Rosewood, and there's a very popular movie by the same name. Don Cheadle plays. You guys might not know who Don Cheadle is, but Don Cheadle is in there, and they bring this movie to life. And this happened in Florida. So Oklahoma, now we're going over to Florida. And so this was January 1st, 1923. So this was 2 years after Greenwood. And January 1st, a KKK rally had been held the same day in a town near Rosewood. A white woman named Fannie Taylor basically said that a Black man had beaten her. So her husband like gathered up a bunch of men and was basically like, someone assaulted my wife, like we're gonna have to handle this. So they immediately accused like a Black man who had recently escaped from a chain gang for the assault, and they started to go to the Black side of town. They used dogs to try to find the criminal, and it led them to the house of Sarah Carrier. Now here's the thing: what are you using to what are you using in order to make your dog sniff out like a suspect, right? Of course, it's probably going to lead to Sarah Carrier. She's the woman who does her laundry, right? So she probably has, like, her scent is on things at the home. So anyway, the dogs are led to her house. They believe that her son took the young man that escaped and like took him to freedom. So they take him out. He ends up being shot and killed Sarah Carrier is also killed. And from then on, it prompts a week-long campaign terror where the houses were burned, women were raped, people were beaten, and the whole entire town was destroyed. The people that did escaped into the swamps that were surrounding it, and that was the only way that they were able to escape with their life. And again, this is a scene that occurred all over the U.S. And it just highlights that even when the Black community tried to like build themselves up and try to, you know, do positive things, it only took one time for accusation to come about that was either founded or unfounded, and the entire community, dozens of people could be wiped out just like that, without any sort of justice. For Rosewood, the state of Florida ended up giving like the survivors, I think it was like 7 or 8, by the 1990s, they reopened the story. It started making headlines again. They started investigating, and I believe about 7 or 8 survivors ended up getting $150,000 apiece. So that is like one rare example of Black people getting reparations for something that was done to them in terms of white supremacist terrorism. So we're gonna stop right here because it's 11:51. Do you guys have any? I know there's like a lot to take in. Do you guys have any questions? I really want us to be able to, let me skip past all this. We'll get here tomorrow, but what I would like to do is decompress right now. If you want to share how you're feeling, or if you want to share what you're feeling, feel free to do so by putting it in the chat box or unmuting yourself. If you guys have any questions, now's the time to ask. Irma said, I know. Oh, Lord, Tiffany said she was in 3 meetings at once. I hope you were able to get this. That's multitasking. It was hard for me to look at some of the pictures. I know, Simone, I'm so sorry. It's tough, you know? And the thing is that, like, that's, you know, those few images only scratch the surface. And the fact that they use these images to create postcards out of them and essentially send them and mail them around the country. I couldn't even imagine being like, you know, just walking, minding your business and seeing this postcard just like hanging up in a window or in the store. That's just mind-boggling to me. I know. I honestly don't know how someone can sleep now that knowing they did this. Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that's a good observation. I don't get it either. Miss Williams?
Yeah.
You have anything?
Yeah, I was typing it. I said, it's continued today. All it takes is an accusation. It happened to me. Clearly or obviously, I wasn't lynched, but a white woman neighbor said that I hit her car. I was on my way to taking my sons to Taekwondo. They were in a car. I pulled out of my driveway. She continually parked behind my driveway and made it difficult for me to get out my driveway. I talked to her multiple times about that. It didn't matter. And so one day her kids were out on the porch. I pulled out of my driveway, trying not to hit her car. I scraped my car on the side of my driveway. Her child ran into the house, said that I hit her car. She called the police. I didn't know anything about her child running into, you know, and what her child told her, but that's what happened. When I got back from taking my kids to Taekwondo, I had a little index or a little business card in my box, and I didn't recognize it as, like, I didn't know out here the police leave these little index cards when they came back and they wanted you to call them. So I was like, what is this? I don't know. And I continued on with my day, got a bang on my door after 10 p.m. at night, opened my door, flashlights in my face, asking me why I didn't call. And this, you know, there's an investigation. And I'm like, well, I have no idea what is going on. you hit her car. No, I didn't hit anyone's car. What are you talking about? Well, I saw the damage. I did an investigation. First of all, how'd you do an investigation when I wasn't home? You know,
Right.
you didn't see my car. What investigation? Well, here's your court order. And I had to go to court. I took my kids to court too. With me. When I showed up with my family, with the children, then they pulled me to the side room. Was like, well, let's talk about this. Yeah, let's talk about it, because they were in a car. You know, they saw what happened. I just want them to see how this plays out in America today. And
Yeah.
I ended up going home, you know, and nothing happened. And they waived the fees. And yeah, you were going to waive the fees because nothing happened. And this is based off of one woman's accusation. Why am I here and she's not?
That's
This
crazy.
is America.
Yeah, I know. I know. There's like so many situations I've been followed in stores. I remember when I went to Maine and I just felt so incredibly uncomfortable. I went to CVS and I was like followed throughout the store. And I just felt so horrible. I felt guilty, like I did something. And just really it's sobering, you know, when you talk to the kids. I don't know, like if you guys have experienced anything similar. But I know that my first experience was in middle school when I was called the N-word. That was the first time someone called me the N-word that I knew of. And yeah, I was in middle school and obviously I knew what the word was, but I didn't understand why someone would call me that. You know, I'm just a kid. And it was another kid that did it. It was a teenager. So it's crazy just how, you know, the things that you have to like process and deal with. And then on top of that, being a history teacher and having to teach these things, you're trying to fight back your own feelings and your own emotions while teaching this. It's a lot. It's a lot to decompress.
Yeah.
This is why you need to be taught everywhere. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so thankful that we have African American history because you know, it's like one small step, and I wish it was everywhere. Wish it wasn't just in the city, because it's something that we should have in the suburban areas as well. Because I feel like that would help. It shouldn't just be Black kids or inner city kids that are taking this course. Everybody should take it because it's important. We wouldn't even be in the same school building if it wasn't for African American history. We wouldn't be drinking from the same water fountains. We wouldn't be able to go to the same bathrooms. We wouldn't be able to sit together at restaurants if it wasn't for this. So, yes.
Yep.
It took me a lot. Woo, okay. That was a lot. So I just want to thank you guys for hanging tough and hanging in with us and, you know, being here every single day. Those of you that have constantly been here. Thank you for those of you who are, that's right, Simone. African American history is American history. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's the reason why we can all be together in schools and jobs and everything. It's so important. It is so important. I want to be able to take roll. Someone said period, Pooh. I can't. Hi, Miss Emery. How you doing?
Let's take this. Hi.
Miss Emery, Girls High, everybody. So we got like a little trifecta going on here. We have Girls High in the house, Central in the house, Northeast in the house.
I was on my laptop and I was like, I saw on Facebook, I was like, oh my God, I was like, Miss Ridgway's teaching, so I might as well hop in there.
You teach at Girls High?
I wanted to catch the last of the lesson.
You teach at Girls High?
Yeah.
What do you teach?
I teach African American history, world history, and 9th grade English.
So cool. I did my student teaching at Girls High.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, under Kathleen Thomas. Do you know Kathleen Thomas?
Who?
Kathleen Thomas.
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. It was back in 2005.
I don't think she's there.
Okay.
Yeah, but
yes. So we have 3 teachers. They're like, we have 3 teachers. I know. What's the chance of that, right?
Right. Nice, like all the time.
Yes. Isn't this cool? So Well, so we'll see you guys tomorrow. We're gonna finish up tomorrow with the heavy stuff. And teacher squad, gang. I love you guys. So we'll see everybody tomorrow. Ms. Williams, you have anything? I was able to take roll. Cameron said get out. I was able to take roll.
Thank you.
I'll share that with you. And yeah, me just showing up. But that's okay because I'm recording. So I will share. We will have it. And I'll see everybody tomorrow. I gotta go because my phone was ringing 50 million times.
Oh yeah, mine is too. All right. Talk to you. Bye.
Bye.
I'll try and get on tomorrow too.
Bye. Nice meeting you.
Yay!
Bring your students. Bring your students.
Yes.